Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today, my friends, today is a very special day, because we're looking at A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 1984 monster written and directed by Wes Craven that gave the world Freddy Krueger. Throughout the years, Fred Krueger and his sweater-wearing, finger-knife-tearing, dreaming parent self has become one of the most recognizable figures in all of pop culture. And it's not surprising, given the franchise's run of 9 films, including a crossover and a reboot, 2 seasons of the TV show Freddy's Nightmares, a video game of his own, as well as a character in many others, and all other sorts of appearances in pop culture. But the other thing that makes the Springwood slasher so memorable is that he's not just a guy in a mask played by mostly interchangeable actors. Freddy is given life and a huge personality by the classically trained Robert Englund, who portrayed the character in every film appearance until the remake. Although the series would eventually spiral out of control with a messy mythos and a completely cartoon-like Freddy, none of that can take away from the stunning accomplishment that is Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street. With all that in mind, let us begin this journey and get to the kills. The movie begins with some picture-in-picture shots of a dude hard at work. What you got there, disembodied hands? Couple of knife blades? An old leather glove? Well, you make do with what you have, and voila! We've got the finger knife glove, the most iconic murder weapon in horror history. Title card on Elm Street. Right off the bat, we're in a dream, which is pretty obvious since nightgowns aren't your usual boiler room apparel. Also, there's a sheet. Our ill-dressed protagonist is Tina Gray, and she's being tormented by a fella wearing those Pinterest murder gloves. Better run as fast as you can, Tina. No, like run. For real. Like really run. What are you doing? Right when it looks like she's safe, her tormentor jumps up behind her, but then she wakes up from her dream. But wait a minute, how could that have just been a dream if her nightgown got torn like that? Tina grabs her crucifix for comfort as we're introduced to Springwood's newest sensation, the Jump Rope Girls, in their glossy premiere music video. Tina and her friends are jamming out to that track when they pull up to go to school the next day. What, they just get to park right there on the street? Tina's telling Nancy Thompson and Glenn Lance about her nightmare, with Nancy confiding she had one too, when they're joined by Rod Lane.
I had a hard-on this morning when I woke up, Tina. Had your name written all over it.
There's 4 letters in my name, Rod. How could there be room on your joint for 4 letters?
Oh cool, teenage characters that are funny and likable. Thanks as always, Wes Craven. Nancy tells Tina not to worry, because everyone has bad dreams once in a while. And Glenn's like, yeah, one time I dreamt that I grew up and starred in a movie called Mordecai. Then he runs off to go practice his pirate swagger and eccentric voices. That night, when they're all hanging out at Tina's place, she and Nancy learn that both their dreams feature the same long fingernailed freak.
Actually, they were more like finger knives or something.
Oh, sorry, Nancy. Finger knives. Friggin' know-it-all. Want to tell me what they sound like, too? Glenn's skeptical that they dreamt of the same dude, but then they hear that scree coming from out back. They go outside and Glenn makes the least threatening threat I've ever heard.
I'm gonna punch out your ugly lights, whoever you are.
And then gets friggin' sacked by Rod, who's there to bang girls and style his pompadour. And he's all out of pomade.
So what's going on here, an orgy or something?
Rod the type of guy to make screeching noises with a garden tool and pull a fucking switchblade on another dude, but Tina's still down to bone him anyway. Glenn tries to get in on the action too, but Nancy ain't having it, cause she's a good girl. So he just has to lie there at night with his aching blue balls and listen to the loud ass moaning going on from upstairs, where Rod bangs the grammar out of Tina.
Jungle Man, fix Jane.
She wakes up later to some rocks hitting her window, and if the elastic wall over Nancy is any indication, it looks like Freddy's trying to pay a visit. Nancy covers that shit with the man JC in the first instance of a Catholic connection to Fred Krueger that'll strangely grow throughout the series. We're only 15 minutes into the movie, and we're already about to get one of the most infamous scenes of horror. Tina wanders outside to confront her dream man, and when she steps into an alley, a fedora shadow appears behind her. It's Freddy Krueger's first appearance, and it's dark and scary, and wait, what the fuck? Why does he look like Stretch Armstrong? No, seriously. Yeah, I mean, sure, the sparking finger knives are scary, and his first line's pretty cool.
Please, God.
This is God.
But then he's running like a drunk uncle playing around with his infant nephew as he chases Tina down the alleyway. I'm not trying to shit on Freddy's first appearance. I think it's awesome, and it's got a ton of great moments, like when he shows off his masochism to Tina by slicing off his fingers, or when she rips off his face to reveal a creepy skeleton puppet behind it. But even those are a little silly. And I'm just pointing out that even from his first appearance, he's always had a little bit of goofiness to him. But unlike in later films, this Freddy's still scary as fuck. Rod wakes up to find Tina thrashing around and is unable to see Freddy murdering her when her chest erupts open with 4 slash marks. Then she starts levitating above the bed and her body smacks Rod across the room. In one of the best kills I've ever seen, Tina is slowly dragged up the wall of her room, which they accomplished by building a freaking rotating room and nailing down the furniture and cameras in place while they turned it. Tina winds up on the ceiling, reaching out to Rod for help as he screams her name, but there's nothing he can do. do, and she falls to the bed dead. An amazing first kill to start a franchise with. Glenn and Nancy bust in the room to find Tina dead on the floor and Rod nowhere to be found. So Nancy goes to the police station where her dad, Lieutenant Donald Thompson, is taking on the case. He and her mom, Marge, don't get along, but they do agree on the fact that Rod's the murderer, even after Nancy says the earlier fight Tina and Rod had wasn't that serious.
Maybe you don't think murder is serious.
Oh, what the fuck, Marge? Don't mind her. She's probably just drunk. No, for real. The next morning, she's boozing for breakfast. She tries to get Nancy to stay home from school, but Nancy, sleep deprived from staying up, would probably rather learn geometry than get her makeup melted off by her mom's vodka breath. On the way to school, Nancy's being followed by a cop and abducted by a greaser, which we call real soch of a day. Rod tells Nancy he's innocent, but before he can properly make a case, Lieutenant Thompson pops out and Rod winds up being arrested in the middle of the road. Pop Thompson turns to Nancy and is like, "Great bait, mate. Better get to school before you're late." In demonology class with her teacher Elise Rainier, Nancy has a hard time staying awake, even though the kid reading in front of the class is wearing the loudest shirt I've ever seen. But she eventually falls asleep, which gives us more fun dream stuff, like Tina in a bloody body bag saying "what up" to Nancy. When Nance follows her out into the hallway, we get another indelible image, the body bag being dragged away around the corner by an invisible force. Nancy runs to follow it, but she smacks into a hall monitor wearing a very familiar outfit.
Where's your pass?
Screw your pass.
Better watch that attitude, Nancy. That monitor's been ordained in the Church of Finger Knives. Nancy follows the blood trail downstairs into the boiler room where she runs into Fred Krueger for herself. He's still on that masochism kick and shows Nancy he's got a bunch of oozy maggots behind his nipples. Yuck. Then he comes after her and corners her in the boiler room. And the only way Nancy avoids his glove and his waggly tongue is by burning herself against a hot pipe, which wakes herself up out of the dream. She sees that her dream injury followed her into the real world, so she visits Rod in jail again to hear him out. He tells her that Tina died from 4 slashes all at once, and further elaborates that he's also dreamt of a guy with knives for fingers. So Nancy finally begins to realize just how deep of shit they're all in. And it's pretty deep! That night she's enjoying some tubby time with her favorite blue bath pillow when she falls asleep, and Freddy gets real suggestive with his glove. Before things can get explicit, Nancy's woken up by her mom warning her about sleepy people drowning in baths, but Nancy doesn't heed her warning and falls asleep again. And this time Fred gets straight to business and pulls her underwater, turning her tub into a deep blue sea and nearly drowning her in the bath. She's able to escape, but she ain't taking chances no more. Better break out these convenient stay awake pills behind the mirror. They act V-fast. She gets a bedtime visit from Glenn, who still doesn't buy into all this dream murder stuff, so he's probably not the best person to ask to stand guard for you while you go on a dream journey, Nancy. But since he's the only option she has, they turn off the lights and she tells him to wake her up if she starts sleep freaking. In her dream, she goes outside and winds up at the police station where she peeps in on Rod, fast asleep on his jail cot. Oh, and look, he's got a visitor. Wonder if it's conjugal. Nancy starts calling out for Glenn, but to no avail. Then Tina shows up again and gets all buggy, spitting out centipedes and turning into eels and shit. This is what your dreams are like? What did you eat before bed, Nancy? Freddy pops out and begins another chase sequence that leads Nancy to her home, where she tries to run upstairs only to find the steps have been turned into blocks of toothpaste. Freddy uses a very unconvincing mask and pretends to be Tina for a minute.
Nancy, help me, please.
Until he gets bored role-playing and just wants to be himself again.
Save me from
Freddy.
Nancy finally gets upstairs only to find Glenn asleep, and when she tries to wake herself up in the mirror, she instead gets attacked by Freddy, who jumps through it and pins her down on the bed. They have a feathery pillow fight, which looks like lots of fun, but before Freddy can close the deal, Nancy's alarm clock goes off and wakes her up. She yells at Glenn because he had one job.
you shit.
When she sees a remnant of her Freddy fun time, she realizes Rod is in danger. They go to the police station but get held up by Nancy's dad, who's working late on the case, so they're unable to get back to Rod as he's being visited by Freddy via a very phallic rolled up bedsheet that wraps around his neck. It tightens and strangles him, then drags him across the floor and up the wall to hang him to death. They all find Rod dead via hanging in the jail cell, giving us another kill to chalk up on the board. I guess he couldn't stay golden. After Rod's funeral, Nancy describes her dream stalker to her dad, who looks at Marge nervously as Nance goes into detail about the hat and the sweater and the finger knife glove. Mama Marge says it's time for Nancy to get help, so off to the Katja Institute for some science. Nancy goes to sleep under supervision, but when she slips into REM sleep, her charts start going all earthquakey, and she convulses violently in bed. Marge and the doctors wake her up to find 3 things. Number 1, Nancy's hair is now white. It just might remain that white for the rest of her days. Number 2, I don't really have Hamilton lyrics for 2 or 3, but she's got a slash on her arm, and she's pulled Freddy's fedora out of her dreams and into reality. But Nancy, how will he milady his way around Dreamworld now? The next morning, after Nancy shows Marge the name Fred Krueger is written inside the hat, you know, in case Fred ever had a coat check, I guess, Marge says he's not a threat because Fred Krueger is dead, and Nancy gets real mad that Marge has known about this dude the whole time. So mad that she smashes Marge's handle on the floor. Oh, that liquor's coming out of your allowance, young lady. Later on, after a scene very obviously shot in Venice Beach despite the film's apparent Ohio setting, Nancy comes home to find the windows on her house have wrought iron bars covering them. Looks like Mama Marge got drunk and installed a new security system in, what, a single afternoon? And they say alcohol's a depressant. Marge takes Nancy down to the basement to finally fill her in on Fred Krueger's backstory.
He was a filthy child murderer who killed at least 20 kids in the neighborhood.
Oh, heavy shit. But note that here they only mention child murder. Still not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't until the reboot that Freddy explicitly became even more of a monster. Nancy asks if the justice system did its job, but sounds like it didn't.
The lawyers got fat and the judge got famous, but somebody forgot to sign the search warrant in the right place, and Krueger was free just like that.
So Marge admits that the parents trapped Freddy in an old warehouse and burned the mother down with him inside, killing him in the fire and taking for a death trophy his finger knife glove. Nancy calls Glenn, who, oh yeah, lives across the street in a crop top paradise, and tells him who Freddy is and how she plans to kill him. She's gonna grab him and pull him out of her dreams into the real world, and then I guess Glenn's supposed to do the dirty work?
I grab the guy in my dream. You see me struggling, so you wake me up. We both come out, you whack the fucker, and we got him.
I still wouldn't be trusting this dude after he fell asleep last time, but Nancy gives him another chance and says to meet her on the porch at midnight.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Marge puts Nancy to bed and cleans up her coffeeware, not knowing that as soon as she's out of the room, Nancy about to pull out her backup supply to get another fix of that sweet, sweet Joe. When it gets closer to midnight, Nancy goes to sneak out, only to be thwarted by Marge breaking out her own backup supply of essential fluid. She tries to call Glenn, but that fucking fuck ass has fallen asleep again. So Glenn's dad answers the phone and tells Nancy to leave them alone, then takes the phone off the ringer so she can't call back anymore. Nancy gets a call back though, only it's a horrible nail screeching noise that causes her to rip the phone line out of the wall. That doesn't stop the phone from ringing again though. Spooky. Better take that call, Nance. Must be pretty important.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
Aw, tongue on the first kiss, Fred. Slow that shit down. Nancy runs downstairs to find that she's been locked inside her own house by Marge, who's 2 sheets to the wind on the couch.
Blah, blah.
Then we finally get to see Glenn pay for never being able to stay the fuck awake when he gets sucked into his bed by Freddy's arm. His mattress turns into a straight up Serta sinkhole and then a gory geyser as it erupts with blood, covering the ceiling and the walls of Glenn's room with his innards. It's a fascinating kill that used the same upside down room that Tina's kill did, only this one got a little out of control, shocking some crew members with the electrified blood water and tilting the room off balance when the blood pooled to one side. Thus the even weirder imagery of all that blood sliding off at an angle. This kill is an absolute classic. After Nancy's dad gets to Glenn's house, she calls him and tells him that now it's his job to whack the fucker when she pulls him out of her dream. But he just gives her some half-assed assurance that he will, then sends his deputy outside to keep an eye on her house. Now it's time for a Home Alone sequence. I feel like the 80s went on a real kick with kids and teenagers setting booby traps all over their houses. Anyone ever see the Bizarre Little Monsters with Fred Savage? Same type of shit, man. Of course, Nancy's traps have a bit more of a you're next edge to them. Before the fun and games begin, she puts Marge to bed, and they have a heart-to-heart where they mostly make up. Yeah, Marge, maybe put down the bottle of bed vodka, huh? Leave it for the morning, hair of the dog and all. Nancy sets a couple of alarms and casts off to dreamland. She goes to her dream basement where the dream finger knives are missing. Then a dream door leads her to a dream boiler room because when you have this place as a shooting location, you might as well get a lot of use out of it. Freddy shows up and chases her, scaring her off a platform that lands her back in her front yard. Right before her alarm goes off though, he shows up again and she leaps on him to try to bring him back to her world. She wakes up in bed and it looks like nothing really happened. How do you explain that one, Nancy?
I'm crazy after all.
Yeah. Crazy like a fox. We get a great final girl sequence here, beginning with Nancy smashing a glass over Fred's head. The cop across the street ignores her pleas for help, so Fred finds the time to escape her room, only to get hit in the stomach with her sledgehammer trap, fall backwards down the stairs, and trip over a wire igniting a lamp full of gunpowder. God damn, Freddy, you clumsy as hell in the real world. They wind up in the basement where Nancy douses Fred with gasoline and lights him on fire. And you wouldn't like Freddy when he's on fire, because he's about 20 pounds heavier in the face and it looks fucking weird. It's actually an amazing fire stunt performed by Tony Cesare, who did stunts in The Thing and played Ghostface in the first 2 Screams. Dude tumbles down the stairs while on fire, then begins to climb up them again, all of which was done in a single take. That's some Kane Hodder level stunt work, son. The cops finally take the screaming teenage girl seriously when they see her friggin' house is on fire, but if those burning footsteps are any indication, it looks like Freddy's escaped the basement and gone upstairs to go after Marge. Nancy walks in to find a flaming Freddy straddling her mother, and after Donald rushes in and puts out the fire with a sheet, they pull it back to find Marge's charred corpse floating over an eerie abyss. It sinks down into nothingness and her death concludes with the bed returning to normal.
Now do you believe me?
Yeah, you kinda owe your daughter for life for this one, Lieutenant. Nancy sends her dad downstairs because she knows she's gotta finish this shit. She turns her back to the bed and allows Freddy to rise up from it, tearing his way out of the sheets like an impatient murdering newborn. But she tells him that it's too late for him to get her and that the whole thing is just a dream.
I take back every bit of energy I gave you.
Quite a gamble. Let's see if it pays off. And it does! Wow, unexpected static effects there. She walks out of the bedroom and right onto her front porch where it's a sunny day and her mom hasn't yet been barbecued. Good deal. Oh, and look, all her friends are alive too. Wow, Nance, you made out like a bandit with this ending. Should I take back all those kills from the count? Eh, not so fast, first timers, because it looks like Glenn is driving a Fred's mobile, and it don't want that top down at all. To be honest, this whole end tag scene is kind of a senseless mess that was only tacked on due to producer Bob Shaye's insistence. Wes Craven was not a fan of watching a possessed car drive off off with his heroine screaming. Even worse is what happens after Marge sees the jump rope girls singing their one-hit wonder. Watch this mannequin in just a second. Oh god, it looks so bad. One last time in slow motion. Oof. Kind of a crap ending to stick on one of the greatest horror movies of all time, but you know what? It doesn't negate the kills. So let's see how many we've got at the numbers. 4 people died in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, which is low, but surprisingly not the lowest in the series. Of the victims, 2 were men and 2 were women, making Freddy a certified equal opportunity murderer. With a runtime of 91 minutes, that comes out to a kill on average every 22.75 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Glenn. It was tough between his and Tina's death since they're both absolutely incredible, but this one might have just won out because of the accidental slide all the blood does at the end. It just looks so damn cool. Dalmache for lamest death goes to Rod. It's a fine kill, but compared to the other 3, it's the least memorable. And that's it. Nightmare on Elm Street was released in 1984 and single-handedly launched New Line Cinema into the big leagues of production companies. It also spawned a whole bunch of sequels, and we'll cover the first one, Freddy's Revenge, next Friday. Until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching my Kill Count for A Nightmare on Elm Street. I want to thank a couple of my patrons like Patrick Janeway and Stefan Kalinowski. Due to me making a request too late, I had to settle for this plastic finger knife glove for this first video, but I have like an exact replica coming in the mail from razorgloves.com. Special thanks to Chris who is sending it my way, and I will be featuring the hell out of it in these videos. I'm also just really excited for this series. I hope you are too.